The color is worse.
I try to fix it.
I know.
You know what? Do the other layout where we're further apart, then it looks better.
When you're further from me,
that looks better. It looks better.
I mean, I got a new shirt out for Joseph. I did everything. All right, so we're here. Welcome to the Backpack. And first announcement, Carrie Gorgone is here. Carrie Gorgone has said yes to being my overall consigliere, which means that, amongst other things, she's going to help me run this show. But we have some other plans ready to go. Oh my gosh, that's going to be so weird. We have so many plans. So anyway, I've got Joseph Jaffe on, and I just wanted to show you that Carrie's here and Carrie's part of it. And I'm going to push this button and this thing.
Yeah.
Backpack. That's it. And then there's Joseph Jaffe. It's just like magic. Do you love it?
I love it. So, I'm amped up now.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Do you sing School of Rock stuff? What's your go-to School of Rock kind of song, Joseph?
I mean, it's School of Rock, so I've learned how to sing many bands that I actually didn't. You know, coming from South Africa, I had more of an English influence, English pop. And now enjoying American and global rock. So one of my best shows was a Stones show. I mean, it was just incredible, incredible. And you know, and I remember I was actually in Bremen on business, on a train in the morning, snow outside. I was in a car by myself, or in like a little, I don't know, booth, and on the way to Hamburg. And I just remember learning my lyrics, and it was like a moment in time where I made word associations, looking at the trees outside. But yeah, the Stone show was an amazing show.
That sounds impressive as all things. I was thinking, you know, given the South African, that we could do some Die Antwoord. That's one of my favorite bands, and they're South African. And one of the things I love so much about them is that I know that the South African government hates that they're one of the most popular things that have come out of there besides Blomkamp. You know, it's like they just wish Die Antwoord would not be so popular.
Like blowing my mind with all these Afrikaans words.
You know, it's a thing I've always had. And I think this is true of you. So this is a way to turn this into a question, Joseph. I think that you care so much about people, and you care so much about the people element of any business, that you research more than anyone would be willing to believe about you. You I think, get into learning a lot about people. Is that true for one, or have I just fabricated that in my pantheon of what you are?
I think what's actually happened, it's partly true in the sense that I am on this journey of discovery. And I'm learning stuff about myself. And I've grown so much over the last several months. And one of the biggest learnings has been, it's not about me. It's about my guest. It's about my host, which is exactly why, you know, one of the things I did was I made sure that my background was never about me, never about my books, never about my credentials, and I don't slight anyone who does that. But I just wanted to make it about them. And it's been very liberating for me. And what's really happened, but there's a best practice there, which is sometimes you just don't overthink it. Just do it. And oftentimes it surprises you. And so little things that you do maybe on a whim, or just as a lark, or just almost, you know, without thinking, actually becomes the thing that people remember you for and by. And so that's why, like, this green screen background thing has been amazing for me. And also it from a creative standpoint, it's like, okay, what can I do to surprise them, to delight them, to do something different? It pushes me, it challenges me, even in something as innocuous as a background. And in doing that, when you do that, you start to learn things about people, and it's surprising as well. And they don't expect it for you to be kind of really making it about them. And it's actually not that hard to do. And this is the whole thing, right, Chris? It's like it's not that they're lazy. It's just that people sometimes just don't think. And when you liberate yourself and allow yourself to think and just go down a wormhole, a rabbit hole, whatever you want to call it, it's surprising what you find. And it's all there, right? In their Twitter feed and their Facebook feed. You don't really have to look too hard to find something unique about someone that you can then build on and celebrate with them.
We are surrounded with a lot of people who are very much into self-promotion, and they do these things. They try their hardest to.
Who are you talking about? What I have no idea.
There's people that do this sort of thing from time to time.
All I know is that I trust you. That's all I know.
That's right. So no, it is. I always laugh when I see everybody's book so prominently displayed behind them and all that in this setting, and I almost want them to.
But I also think, like in some respects, I love what I do. I pour everything into my writing. There's no ghost writers or anything with me, and I almost feel like sometimes it's kind of weird. Like, am I neglecting, Built to Suck? Am I neglecting a book that is kind of prophetic? I mean, with J.C. Penney and Sears on the cover of the book. 1 year ago, this book came out saying the end is nigh for the corporate empire or the corporate era. So, like, even yesterday in my soliloquy, I actually brought it back, and I actually said, I made I think a statement which I want to keep building on, which is it conceivable that every single retail brand, apparel brand, will go out of business or file for bankruptcy or protection by the end of 2021? And I think the answer is yes, it is conceivable, because there is just, the business model of big business is broken. The business model of bricks and mortar is done. It's done right now. And all that's happened is COVID has just, amplified or accelerated that demise, not caused it, accelerated it. And so, like, it's finding the balance for me, Chris, of like, how do I talk about that and still not lose what I think is kind of special with my show, which is, my guest.
So you launched CoronaTV right around the same time. You launched CoronaTV right around the same time as I did. A lot of other people threw some shoes together. And one thing I find is interesting about that is, well, one, you taught me some things. The voice of God thing, the fact that, I can do just a solo shot now is pure Joseph Jaffe. Find the little human head button, push the human head button, and we're all good to do. And I've been availing of that. And I think it changes the whole dynamic of the show. I didn't know about StreamYard until Carrie, who now runs the show. Before that, I was using another product that was a good friend product. We both have learned that comments matter, dragging the comment. And we've learned all these things as we go fast. Does it feel exciting to you the way the good old days did before our shenanigans became codified and we had to make them into business plans and stuff? Talk for a minute about that, if you would.
I think it does, because I never ever went near video before. It was just too hard. It was just too difficult. Everything in terms of file sizes and edits, it was damn near impossible. And by the way, I remember even podcasting, audio podcasting, when I started Across the Sound with Steve Rubell in 2005, literally one of the first marketing podcasts in the world. I mean, I have one memory. We only lasted 13 shows. I mean, Steve left after 13. It was too difficult for him. He had this amazingly popular blog, remember blogs at the time, called Micro Persuasion. And I remember I was at a conference in San Diego, and what are you doing like that?
I'm just messing with her.
I know. I was looking. I was like, oh,
how do I get a blink?
I thought maybe I was having a fit. I didn't know what was going on. And I remember I was in my hotel room in San Diego, and we did an episode. And then right at the end, great 1 hour show, the damn file corrupted or didn't save or crashed. But just to put out an audio podcast in 2005 was so hard. And now look at what we can do. So what's exciting to me is I'm learning every single day. And also StreamYard as a company is learning, and they're innovating, I guess, as fast as they can. But then there are little things that sometimes are big things, right? Like now mobile hosting is a pretty big thing.
Right.
Now, I could be in an airport lounge if we ever travel again, or I could technically be on a beach and do an episode of my show with banners and comments and overlays. And that's cool. That's really cool. So yeah, I do feel that schoolboy, that excitement again, and it's awesome because I mean, one, we've always got to be learning, otherwise we're dying. And two is when you can find that excitement, it's a beautiful thing.
So there we have it. And you get a visit from the feline. So any minute now you get a free anus.
Did a black cat just cross my path?
Really, truly did. And you get a free anus in just a few moments as she kind of assesses the Carrie, this has changed. Oh my gosh. The game.
You like that, right?
Oh my God. I dislike this creature so much, but she demonstrates every single day that I'm purely subservient to some of her whims.
By the way, one of the most interesting things of when it gets flipped, when the host becomes the guest,
yes,
you don't actually know where to put your hands. so like it's kind of like, you know, I mean, it's I want to like expand, contract, put a comment, look to the right, look to the left, and it's kind of weird.
See, I want to talk about that because to me, that's the thing. To me, and also I know to look here, to look at you, because as a host, I've practiced that there's the anus. I have practiced multiple times.
Anus cat.
So I feel that, you know, like you say, I don't know what to do with my hands. That's a quote from Talladega Nights, which made me laugh harder because that's Will Ferrell's character. I don't know what to do with my hands. But that gets to another Joseph Jaffe thing. You come up with these quotes. You come up with these little details that you sadistically know no one's going to know, and then spring them on the guest. It's such a fun piece of the show. Where did that come from? Why that?
So again, it's like the process, which is, by the way, similar to how I write a book, how I create a presentation, is I call it like ordered chaos or organized chaos. It's chaotic, but it just flows, and I don't question it, and I just go with it. So like, for example, why are there 4 pillars? Why are there not 3 pillars? Why is this, you know, why is it called, when I flipped the funnel, instead of AIDA, awareness, interest, action, I was like, well, let's flip that. Let's create ADIA, acknowledgement, dialogue, incentivization, activation. And you're like, well, does that even make sense? Why is there not an extra letter? Why does the D have to be dialogue? You're seriously writing a book on retention as the new acquisition, and this is a framework or philosophy that maybe one day could be taught. And it's almost like the more you think about it, it's almost like a Yogi Berrism. The more you think about it, the less it makes sense. So with this, it was almost like trying to play. I was trying to fill space. So if you go to like make us bring yourself back and go to the view where it's like, you know, we're like two smaller rectangles. Bring yourself back, Chris.
I'm back.
Okay, now make us smaller, you know, like where it's 2 of us. So there I was trying to figure out, how do I fill space? And so one of the things above us right now is I was like, well, why don't I put in a quote or something like that? And then somehow it became this sadistic idea, which is like, now you've got to guess who said that. So I've had a lot of fun. Like, for example, when I had Laura on, I used her own quote. So it's like, can you imagine if she hadn't realized it was her quote? But of course she would have, because it's on her website. Mm-hmm. And so it's just playing, you know, like I had Dumbledore once, and sometimes it's completely obscure, and other times it's poignant, but it's another thing, you know. And it's like, whether you call it a bit, whether you call it a segment, it's trying to create a show that has structure and consistency. And I think that's one of the most important things, which is when people keep coming back, and it becomes reassuring and comforting, and that's what a brand is. It's consistency at the end of the day, even if the consistent thing is inconsistency, but there has to be a consistent management of expectations. And so in a way now it's just something that you know, and if it resonates, I keep doing it, and if it doesn't, I just give it up.
That's right. So many things I want to talk about. One, you know, I find this too, maybe you do this too, because again, because you're used to being the host and the guest, you really do get a different perspective. And for instance, we've both been on shows where the host talks 90% of the time, and you're thinking, should I just go get a drink? What do I do now? If the setup is far too long. And I've observed you. I had a bias that, because you like to orate, I thought Joseph's show is going to be a talking show where Joseph talks. You're an incredible listener, and you're a deep listener. And I didn't expect that. So I'm paying you sort of almost a backhanded compliment, because it was just my expectation of you was different than what I saw. And I was very blown away. There's no question there. But the question I'll add to the side of it was this. I was there the other day with your friend from Florida, whose name I'm never going to remember. And he was talking about branding. It was no, not Ted. Brian Byron Barry, silvery hair, very handsome.
Bruce Turkel.
Bruce.
Amazing show.
He made a comment about brand that has stuck with me for days. And that's what we hope for, isn't it, Joseph? Even if it's not from us. He said something about how brand has to be far more important than function, because brand has to shift. And in this Corona time, that's a thing. How do you feel, or what do you feel in those moments when you just caught some fire?
So there are a couple of things. I want to go back to what you first said, which is calling me a good and a deep listener. And I'm going to say thank you, but I'm the worst listener in the world, or at least I was the worst listener. Every day I get notes or feedback, let's call that criticism, from my wife. And she, very, very early in the process, she said, you talk too much, your questions are too long, you don't listen. And of course I said, what the hell do you know? I mean, you've never put on a show. And I dismissed everything she had to say. And then of course, exactly. And then of course she was right. Mm-hmm. And so what I've done is I'm trying to train myself to let my guests talk and not feel the need to interrupt them. Let them talk until they're done. And so what actually happened in that process is, and there are so many elements to it, Chris, I'm not going to forget your other question, which is, she's always right. But the show 30 minutes and then the after show 30 minutes. And I'm like, you know what? Guess what? Most shows are now an hour. And why not? Because this can never be broadcast. This can never be the old way. It's got to be the best of the old with the best of the new. We can never lose sight of that the beautiful elements from Clue Train Manifesto all the way through, where you and I, all of us, we created this new way of working, this new life. And so I try and find the balance between the two of them. And, one of the most important things, I know people listening would agree, because we all are guilty, is when we're trying to think of the next question, we're not actually listening. And by the way, it's really hard when you're a host, because you don't want dead air, and you don't, and you want to follow up, and you want to pick up on what people say, and then you want to bring comments in. So you got to be a good multitasker, and for the most part, most people are going to forget even what I just said right now. It's probably the last thing I say that then you as a host can pick up on on. Now, you were talking about flack, right? Speaking of which, I don't know that I have caught flack or done something that has put me in controversy right now. And that's probably because either I've been lucky or in reality, it's just because I'm trying to be honest. I'm just trying to be honest. I'm calling it like I see it. Mm-hmm. I've had a couple. I'll tell you something that happened. And this was the first time it happened. I wanted to die. I wanted the world the ground to swallow me up whole. On the Zoom after show, I got Zoom bombed, and there were a couple of incidences, but the worst possible thing was the N-word being said. And it's just crushing. It's soul destroying. It is a terrible thing, and I tried to and it happened actually recently while I was streaming live on Facebook. and I actually I've left the show up because should I've just, everyone told me to take it down. I'm like, this is I didn't do this. I'm secure enough in knowing that you know, it was probably just a punk, a kid, someone who thought it was funny, or maybe it was a white supremacist. I don't know, but like the first time it happened, it destroyed me. The second time, I was a little bit more resolute to be able to stand on my own 2 feet and find a middle ground. I reached out to my guest immediately and I said, "Do you want me to take it down?" He said, given what we were talking about, it was almost like, what are you going to do, right? We're talking about fake news. We're talking about disintermediation. I mean, you know, not disintermediation, disinformation. So I think it's so funny, Chris, because you knew me differently, right? I mean, I had the SeaWorld logo on before. It was almost like, oh, your persona, Jaffe Juice, is to be provocative and, you know, and rail against people and be controversial. And, you know, I remember when I interviewed Adam Curry on my show, he very graciously agreed to come on my show. And he was the podfather. And then it was a 2-part interview. And what did I do? Just to be a little snarky, I took his show hostage. I wouldn't release the second show because he didn't give me enough love on the first show, on his show, to say I was on. And he just tore me a new arsehole. Like, I remember standing on the platform at Southport train station and my phone blew up. And people are like, dude, do you know what Adam Curry is saying about you right now? He is literally destroying you. And I remember the color draining from my face. And then as the show ended, I get a text message from him going, "Hot enough for you?" With a smiley face. And I'm like, oh, he's just messing with me. And then I went back on the show and I said, I just got a call, you know, from Adam, and he's just messing with me. And then he proceeded to then tear me a newer arsehole by going, "Messing with you? I'm not messing with you. You're an idiot." You're like, and so he did it again to me. And then he sent me another text going, "Hot enough for you yet?" And what he was basically teaching me is, if you want to run with the big dogs, you can't pee like a puppy, you know? So, but that's not me anymore. I don't need to do that and resort to stunts anymore. I'm just like, that's why I said that my show is about hope, positivity, optimism. And if there's a little bit of time left over, we'll talk marketing.
So why, how did you grow? What happened?
I mean, how I grew was the fact that people were dying all around me. You know, my wife had COVID. All of my revenue, like so many people's revenue, went out the window. No one was booking speakers anymore. Everyone is in survival mode. I was like, what, you know, I don't want to be an oxygen invader here. Like, what, surely there's a role for me to play in terms of helping people. Everyone was saying helping is the new selling. Well, I'm not even worried about selling because no one's buying, but I wanted to help. And the funny thing is, like I tell people, CoronaTV, this is what I was meant to do. This is my calling. This is my purpose. And it took a global pandemic to discover it. Like so many people that have been laid off or fired, that they would never gotten a chance to do what they were meant to do had they not been pushed. And it's funny because I did see one comment. I'm trying not to look. I got to like follow up with Don Holiday, who said life after the 30-second spot got him fired. I hope that you didn't walk in and like present the book to your boss, and then they're like, "That's awesome, Don. You're fired." You know, but I need to know that Don is okay. So Don, you got to message me and let me know that you're okay, or what happened to you after the fact. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the show is taking on its own form and shape. But I got to tell you, like, I'm modeling myself. I'm not modeling myself on him or his show. But Donnie Deutsch created a show called The Big Idea, and I was like, finally, there's a show on marketing, on creativity, on my business, on our business. And exactly, and by the way, that was a keyring that a buddy gave me at college, and with that saying, now what was I saying again? What was I just saying? Oh yeah, and then the next thing, he was like interviewing, I don't know, like porn stars, and it just became too pop culture and too commercial. So like, I still want to talk about marketing and branding. And, today I've got Martin Lindstrom on the show, and, and I want to talk about companies. I want to talk about strategy, but also be able to mix it up with a musician, with a comedian, with a Survivor finalist, with a basketball player, and find, the commonalities that people have, whether it's helping others, whether it's giving advice, whether it's lessons to live by. I mean, Cindy Gallup, who was on my show earlier this week, she came up with this amazing thing. She said in her whole life, she always chased the thing that everybody rejected. And that's an amazing concept. It's like, some people say you zig where others are zagging. Some people say, but she literally would pursue the thing, not that no one else pursued, but quite frankly, that everyone else rejected, and then figured out how to kind of make it her own. And it's like, can you imagine living your life that way? It's very cool.
I think it's a big move. I'm going to drag Carrie in because she always has some questions. Carrie hosts the Marketing Profs podcast. She also, much more importantly, hosts Punch Out with Katie and Carrie, which is what people do after hours. I'm going to get off the damn screen for a second and let this be Carrie's show for a minute. Joseph, staying with us.
Joseph, you are really good at letting people say their piece. And I wonder if there's ever been a moment where you were like, wow, I kind of wish I'd stepped on that one. Like, they took that in a direction I did not want to go.
Probably more often than not. But then the thing, somebody actually said to me, and I've got to remember what they said. They said, many people can talk, or many people can listen, or many people can have a conversation, but you understand. And so, like, what I took from that piece of advice is, you can always find, whether the thread, whether it's the thread that unravels or the red thread, or there's always something that you can actually build on, or reframe. And so that's how I kind of like try and bring it back in a sense. But Kerry, what I've been doing throughout this process is running a lot, or trying to run again, and listening to Howard Stern predominantly when I run. But then Tim Ferriss, and there are a few people that I listen to, and it's weird because most people need music when they run. I listen to spoken word to try and get smarter. And I listen to Howard Stern now differently. I listen to him as an interviewer, and how
he's a phenomenal interviewer, and he does not get enough credit for it.
He's the best. And sometimes what he does, he has one technique, is somebody says something and then he just asks a different question. Like, he doesn't feel the need to go, well, that was interesting, and I want to follow up on that. I do that a lot, but then he'll just let them say their piece. Maybe to your point, Kerry, like, they took it in a different direction, and he'll just ask a different question. Like, I'm moving on.
Chris does that. That's called the 90-degree segue. It's like, wow, that's interesting. Now, about the price of tea in China, let's talk about that for a while.
Speaking of which,
we had a comment from Don Holliday saying that your book got him fired from working in broadcast radio. So
I know, so go to the bottom, because I asked him how he's doing, and he said, okay, let's read that. He said, I'm great. They wanted to continue living during, and I really connected to the post 30-second concepts and strategies, and they still hate those ideas. Even when podcasts and streamcasts continue to beat them up. There's so much to say with that comment, by the way, and it's just beautiful to build on it, because one of my guests actually said this on the after show. He said, if you think about it, he said, people, and I'll just add, you and Chris and Laura and Saul, your production quality is increasing exponentially by the day. And all of the others, the established broadcasters and brands, they've like descended into Wayne's World, at home with bad lighting and bad mic and bad makeup, and we don't wear any, at least I'm not, and so what's happening is the beautiful leveling, of the playing fields. And so,
right. We're assessing people's content instead of their production value. Like,
and I got to say, like, if JCPenney, if Sears, if Lord and Taylor, if Brooks Brothers, if they had adopted the strategies and the vision, not just in Built to Suck, but quite frankly, in Trust Agents, in all of these books that were written 1 year ago, 10 years ago. Flip the Funnel was written 10 years ago. Life After the 30 Second Spot, 15 years ago. There it is. Buy this book now. By the way, 2 of the bold approaches in Life After the 30-Second Spot. Well, 3 of them. One was called mobile. The iPhone didn't exist yet. One was called gaming. The whole, Fortnite thing didn't exist yet, and none of the streaming solutions. 4, one of them was called consumer-generated content. YouTube had not even been founded yet. And one of them was called communal marketing. The phrase social media didn't even exist, and Facebook hadn't even been founded. So
I thought YouTube was stupid. When I first heard about YouTube, the way it was described to me was, it's a site. It's like TV, but on the computer, but like people just get on and talk.
Albert Cheng from ABC Disney Interactive in the hallway of Jeff Pulver's Video on the Net show, September 2006. After my first ever podcamp, I grabbed him in the hallway and I said, but we want to talk about new media. We want to talk about new things. And he looked at me with as much disdain as he could possibly muster on his little face. And he said, we have America's Funniest Home Videos. That's what he thought YouTube was. He thought it was a replacement for America's Funniest Home Videos.
For some people it was, I guess I didn't think about the fact that technology would advance to the point where you could do something like this from home. It was very not sophisticated, not polished, and barely listenable. Like to me, audio is so important. I was an audio podcaster at the time, so I was like a little snotty about audio already. And how hard it was to get it correct at the time. You needed a lot of mics and connectors and blah, blah. So YouTube definitely democratized that, but it took a while for it to get good.
And by the way, I love how Chris, when he goes out, he like pushes he does that. I love that. That's a good move, Chris.
Are you going to steal it? Or are you going to do something else? Are you going to steal it or do your own thing? Like think out of frame?
I can only steal it if I get an Ed McMahon, if I get a sidekick. But
Chris, you could do it on yourself, I guess.
Well, Chris is being interrogated right now. You can tell by the light on him, so he's got to like go in and out to answer.
You will talk. You will talk.
Where were you the night of January 17th? Get back here.
If a train left the station at 200 miles per hour, traveling to it,
what'd you do to that? What'd you do to that cat?
Do you know where that's from, Chris? That's a fucking trick question. That is from the movie Johnny Dangerously.
Farging Ice Hole.
Yeah.
I love so many parts of that movie.
That's the thing that catches him out. Roman Moroni, deported to Sweden, claims he was
he's not from there. Oh, you bastard.
You sneaky farging. I won't even say the next one. Well, I could say cork sucking because it's a cork, right? Right. And your rating just went from a family friendly to explicit.
That's not the first time, Joseph.
Or to quote Roman Moroni, explicit. But Kerry, back to what you were saying. The thing that's also been amazing with this whole process, and it's more work, but it's cool, is that you do the show, and then I do the after show, which props to Steve Garfield, who continues to push me and challenge me to keep going with that after show and figure out how to evolve it. That way. And he's been amazing as a kind of in terms of giving advice. But then there's the ability to figure out, okay, now I've got all of this content, what do I do with it? And I don't have any resources to start cutting and slicing and dicing. But what I have done is I've created an audio podcast version. So I've put it under JaffeJuiceTV. So if you search JaffeJuiceTV, on whatever, Spotify, Apple Music, you'll find the audio versions of every show, and most of them I'm still playing catch up. And now what I'm playing with is this idea of a Corona Bite, which is a 1-minute highlight of the show. And so I'm playing with this idea of how do I cut, how do I slice, how do I dice, which platforms are better suited to which pieces of content and what format. It does add more complexity and work, but I'm also trying to figure out what sticks in terms of how do I grow this community, you'll notice I'm trying not to call it an audience. I'm calling it a community.
Oh, Krista's done that forever. I know, there he is. I was waiting for him to come
Did you say my thing? All right, hang on.
Full attribution to Chris Brogan.
Over there. Hang on a minute. Okay. Carrie has to go do other stuff. She has to moderate a forum because she has a grown-up job doing this sort of thing with grown-ups. The humor is, and Joseph, you'll appreciate this based on what we were just listening. Thank you, by the way, Carrie. We're both talking about the innovations. We're talking about the things that we can do with this platform and the things that we can stretch it to do. And I stole this from Casey Neistat, by the way. Casey Neistat uses this as a great video cut method for video blogging. So he'll be like, well, let's go down and see if this skateboard works the way the other one did. Boop. And then he pulls it back. And now we're in the new cut, right? We're in the new scene and it's just flawless. I was doing a webinar on Zoom yesterday and nothing felt so archaic. Now, Zoom at the beginning of the Corona show, Zoom was the currency. And already it feels old and dumb compared to something like this. So I feel like, could there be a renaissance in your language?
In terms of
the technology catching up to how well we can make this actually happen? I mean, this kind of footage.
It's happening. I mean, it's happening right now. And, and seeing, one of the most amazing things is StreamYard. I've become like almost, I'm definitely an unofficial ambassador, unofficial as in they keep saying, Joseph, you need to adhere to the terms of the cease and desist. And but I love this piece of software for what I pay and what I get. It's almost like, it feels like my Netflix subscription. I almost feel like, is there a tip jar or somewhere? But the thing is, the community on Facebook, for example, is unbelievable. And you see how people are using overlays and countdown timers, and some of the things that are happening there. But I think, for example, people using DSLR cameras to create, like Greg Verdino on my show, I was like, I kept on wanting to like touch him. The picture was so good. I was like, wow, like that's unbelievable. Are you a green screen? It was so good. But I think at the same time, I think the technology is there already. We are only constrained by the limits of our imagination. It is, and that is a renaissance.
Right.
Like anything is possible. And I've always believed this. That's why I reject all of these, interpretations that COVID has ushered in digital transformation. No, it hasn't. It's digital catch-up, not ketchup, but digital catch-up. Digital catch-up. And these companies were behind the 8 ball, and they are doing their best to be able to try and just survive, let alone thrive. And so that I believe in transformation. I believe in disruption. I believe in innovation. I believe that if you can dream it, you can do it. I've always used that Walt Disney quote because I believe that that's what technology brings to the table.
You named your show CoronaTV, which one would presume will have some end at some point. At some point, it will not be the virus du jour. We'll move on to someone like a scorpion face or something, and then they'll have some other new novel virus. Is that a challenge, or are you just riding with what you have?
I mean, I was thinking of changing it to the backpack, but then the URL was taken. So no, I mean, look, I've been. It's not meant to be like a grand reveal, but the idea is that CoronaTV will become JaffeJuiceTV or revert back. Years ago he has a blast from the past. Lauren Feldman, the guy who did the puppets. Lauren was helping me produce them, and I paid him, and so he would come. He would come up to Connecticut, and we would do 6 or 7 of them, and then he would cut them to 3 or 4 minutes. And I have about 150. If you go to JaffeJuice.tv, which is the same as my channel, right? Same as CoronaTV.show, you'll see 150 episodes of JaffeJuiceTV. That was 10 years ago, and then I stopped because it was too expensive to keep it, to like keep using him, and I couldn't do it myself. It's the whole point, right? About the editing and the complexity. So Jaffe Juice TV seems like what this should become, but I'm struggling to let go of this, this moment. Corona TV, Corona cocktails. When I do the evening show, I think maybe Scott Monty was my first cocktail, Corona cocktails. Corona Bite. If I get a college kid on, Corona College. Corona Radio, which is the audio version. I kind of like the branding, and people have said, that's a negative term, that's a negative word, that's a negative connotation. But isn't it also a beautiful, moment to this is the birth of Corona TV, right? It was at this time, would not exist otherwise. So I don't know. I mean, I know that most people, the overwhelming majority of people, will tell me the sooner that I revert or convert to Jaffe Juice TV, the better. But I'm struggling to let go.
I don't feel that. I think that it's a fine name for quite some more time. And remember that, Corona is a term that actually just means crown, and it's used in nature for things like solar flares. There's a corona flare around the sun. So it's just the fact that this particular virus looks oddly like a crown, as best as anyone wanted to name it, and that fits a category of thing. So, there's some legs after the fact,
and accepting beer sponsorships as well.
Clearly. And it has to happen. I'm trying awfully hard to convince Johnsonville Bratwurst that they need to sponsor me, because they're the sausage for runners as well, and quite an American product.
I've heard that pitch on your show, and if you guys are listening, smartest investment you will ever make. And by the way,
they're not going to get any better than this, right?
And by the way, Chris, if you just think about it, look at your show and my show and all these other shows right now, and the brand platform that has been created. That's why I am, who cares about views and likes and all these silly little statistics? We are refining our craft. We are creating a platform. We are the talent, and we're building something that is substantial. And right now, if you're a B2B company out there, there's no trade. What are you doing with your trade marketing budget? Where are you spending it? Like, how on earth are you going to get the attention of buyers out there when there are no events taking place? It's insane. And if you're a B2C company out there, same, right? It's like, how are you aligning right now with engagement with audience? So, what's a Johnsonville Bratwurst?
What do they have to lose?
Just pay in kind, just provide Bratwurst.
Throw sausage over to your dumb fat host and it'll be fine. Joseph, you mentioned that in this process, you've had chances to think about philosophy and music and that sort of a thing, which also relates to how a lot of people are kind of dealing with lockdown. And you also added that your wife also dealt with the ailment, and so that of course brings it a lot closer to home. You coming out of this, if they say next month, which I hope they don't, you're all done, everybody's fine, just back to normal now. What have you gained besides the show? We know we've talked extensively about that. What have you gained, and what makes you the next? What's the next iteration of Joseph?
Well, to start, I'm all in with this, and so that's the answer. With Corona TV. This is what I was meant to do. And I can say it in a self-deprecating way. They told me I had a face for radio, but this is what I was meant to do. Video, a show about marketing, an opportunity to talk to people that I can learn from, that I care about. I must have said this to you too, which is you and I had now we've done it twice. Right. Just the two of us sitting down and talking to one another, which is not to say that we never did. It's just that there was always other people around, and we're always at events and ships passing in the night. So I am all in on this, and I want to spend more time. A mutual friend of ours inspires me in terms of how he's gone all in on this, but CC Chapman, in terms of teaching. I am teaching. I teach at West Virginia University. I want to become a part-time and eventually a full-time or part-time adjunct, and eventually I want to teach full-time, which will still allow me to do my show, I hope, and still allow me to talk and speak, because I love that. I love travel, I love speaking, and that's my life. If I can, and quite frankly, and I'm sorry if you guys are corporate executives out there, if I can never ever have to work with a large corporation again, that would be a good day for me, because I won't stop caring, I won't stop trying to help you guys, but I can't help you if you won't help yourself. And I don't want to be around those toxic environments anymore.
That's bold and important, and I think it's true, which is probably the most of the important of the three things that I just said. It's true. It's hard to feel. I mean, I feel that that's a sentiment that's happening across the country in a lot of different ways. Is the big, eat the rich kind of a thing for the poor versus rich, but also sort of eat the big. There's a real feeling out there, that of course Seth Godin, presaged 15 or more years ago with Small is the New Big, because that bastard writes every book ahead of us, and then we just rewrite a fake version of his book years later.
Did you say it was his birthday today? Did I recall?
I dropped him an email. Every year I send him an email. Every year he tries to think of the briefest possible way to reply.
Thanks.
Thanks! Exclamation point! Hugs. He added hugs. Because if you say something personable, I think he thinks in his algorithm that's what one must do.
So and by the way, I mean, something about Seth Godin, which you gotta love. He responds to every email.
Everyone.
And it's probably within like 30 minutes. Maybe
this was early in the day, and he still did it. He's just like, whip, here's your answer.
Maybe sooner. It's unusual how he does that. I mean, maybe he has a Kerry. Maybe he has an Ed McMahon that just sends. I think we're going to go with a thanks, a hugs, and let's add in an XO.
Seth Godin with XOs, that would be a thing.
Yeah.
SethGodin.com. If you just email it, by the way, Seth@SethGodin.com. I don't think that's a secret. Or if it is, I just outed him. Joseph, I'm going to boot you with all love. I had such a grand time. This was so fun. I learned way more than I thought, which again is just, part and parcel to how deep those waters run over there. You're a smart, interesting, passionate man. I learned on your show, and I try to sneak in when I can because I think it's worth it. And I catch the replays a little more often than I'm going to admit, because you have great guests and you do a good job of bringing them to where they be. And
I just want to say also thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for having me on your show. And thank you, even like that episode with Bruce Turkel, it's really great when you see a familiar face, or in this case, a name, commenting on, and so that's why I always go, oh, Chris Brogan, he was a guest on, but it's nice to be building that camaraderie in that community.
I agree. And it's fun. One thing I love so very much is I love to see the experience of like we're all at each other's shows at some point or another. It's like this weird Grateful Dead with nerds. So quite lovely. Joseph, I'm pushing the button. I'm knocking you out of the chair. I adore you. I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for being on. This is another new format as well, because for some reason she didn't know it, but Carrie still had a minute. Mm-hmm. Joseph, thank you so much. It was dreamy.
He's in there we go.
And now, this is a different setup, because the other way we did this is it used to be I would just thank the guest. We'd go, I'd hit the button, we'd leave. But I brought you back on.
I know when you say you did. So I'm in Central Time, and that's baffling for people who are not.
Yes.
So my calendar invite was wrong, and I didn't want to. And I got to come back and be dressed down for putting the ticker at the bottom about myself.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even share that. But
You didn't. I did for like a microsecond because it was just funny.
That was very funny. So Carrie added herself to the ticker, just FYI. I like that sort of thing. I mean, that's like there's so many notorious why is that not doing what I needed to do?
I made a new ticker. I didn't delete your ticker.
No. I was clicking some totally different thing. Thanks, Joseph. Joseph even showed himself out. He's a very good man. I enjoyed that. This was weird. Oh, now he's here. Now we have him in the comments. He's everywhere.
Joseph in the comments.
Yes. I don't know. I don't know if I mean, we're going to work on slicing the show up. We're going to have segments, and that means it's going to, we're going to change a little bit how we interview the guests. And, there's things I don't know about, how does one do that? What's the tact? I'm leaving you, but I'm putting someone else on. When you watch those old Johnny Carson shows, it was a real, engineering stunt to get the guest that was prominent to get up. Everybody has to get up and sort of monkey the seats over one.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It was a thing.
It was a spectacle.
Yes.
The entrance was a spectacle in and of itself. Now it's just like, boom, you're on.
Right. I was watching some Best of Carson, and I was really getting into watching some of those transitions. And one of them where Steve Martin was on back when he was like super funny all the time and not also thoughtful. And he said he pre-set up a bit with Johnny because they'd never like to be surprised. And he pre-set up a bit that said, I see that a lot of the famous, important people have to go. Like they just like, oh, well, I got to go now. So, and then like you just play them off and they like get up out of the seats and leave.
Yep.
And so he wanted that kind of an exit. And he goes, but I don't have anywhere to be. So, and so Johnny says he's got to go. And Steve's like, I'm sorry, I would have stayed. And he wanders off and says goodbye and everything, goes through the curtain. And then there's a moment and you kind of like realize, like if you think
like
about
they're messing with you
over there for nothing. and he comes back out. He goes, I was lying. I don't have anywhere to be. I don't have anything to do. And it makes a great bit, but we're recreating all that. Like we're doing that stuff again now.
Well, it was funny. So before you did the whole like one person on screen thing, before we figured that out, there was a time when you wanted Scott Monty to be alone on the screen doing his impressions, and you just like cut out, left the street. So, but he is such a pro. He just sat there like, ladies and gentlemen, we have lost Chris Brogan. This is it's very, it was so funny. And actually by itself, that was hilarious. Even when you came back and explained that's, you were yielding the floor to him.
Yes. And I realized that, my failure with Scott led me to say things like, I just want you to talk about this for a minute. So like, I'm really cueing, like, this is your moment on the screen. And
your moment to shine.
I think it's going to be weirder is I think that when I do it like this, and I'm start talking, you're like, wait, whoa, guests are going to like look at.
Well, so we're in marketing, like, and so a lot of those folks, not the ones you choose, are used to talking uninterrupted for the duration of their show. So, everyone handles things a little bit differently, but the way the guests you've been picking are much more, it's much more of a give and take. Even on their shows, like when you watch Jaffe Juice, yes, the guest is featured, but he's not absent from the proceedings. Some shows you watch and you're like, do I need to even like pay attention to this half the screen because they're not doing anything but keeping that cautiously optimistic look on their face, like something good will happen.
It's interesting to me when guests can really run. It's interesting, I realized it. So I went back and looked at some of my old tapes, and I'm like a bobblehead over here. Someone's talking and then I'm like, and I that's why I started realizing how great it would be to pull me off the stage because, at least then they can just talk and I don't have to look like purely locked into place. Which, speaking of which, did I just lose you? Looks like your camera locked up. Is everybody else here? I think I lost Carrie. I'm just going to do that until she clicks back in or something. That's pretty funny. Nope, she's gone. I think something broke. What timing, ladies and gentlemen? Are you using StreamYard to bring guests in and out of the screen, or is that another tool? No, it's StreamYard. Did you do that on purpose?
No.
You just broke everything. Just like, right as I'm talking about how weird things can happen?
No.
Yep. That's StreamYard. Joanne's here. No. I mean, yeah, guests are here. Sorry, I lost Carrie, but
Yeah, I came back.
That was the thing. We're good.
That's okay. As long, that's why you have to keep the cautiously optimistic look on your face in case you get frozen.
Yeah, you froze at a pretty not bad face.
Yeah, it's practice. It's practice. You don't want to make a stupid face. Don't get caught up in nodding is what I was saying, because you stop listening to people. Like, and you're focused on like, wait, do I look like I'm listening? Because I need to look like I'm listening. But you're not listening. No.
Joseph said it best though too. Joseph said, I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm used to being like the DJ, and I feel the same way. You're touching all the buttons, and I'm like, what the crap am I supposed to do now? Like, it's so new.
To have somebody else playing with the buttons and putting tickers in that you didn't
approve. Buttons. You know? So adding yourself to my ticker.
I did it. I made a new ticker. I would like to clarify that for the record. If you read back my remarks, you will see I did not perjure myself.
I did not perjure myself. I listened to that like 3 times last night. Went to sleep.
I did not.
Yeah. So when we figure out the slices, that'll be interesting too. You know, bringing in a guest, having a segment, doing a thing. You know, I will bring in more clips. You know, like the backpack thing is just attention-related, but essentially this is a clip. So I can be like, hey, let's just look at what these people have to say. You know, and that'll do the thing, right?
90-degree segue brought to you by Johnsonville Brats.
I know. I cannot wait. You know what I'm going to do for that, by the way? I'll tell you, I already thought of this. So I think Walmart sells a massive amount of Johnsonville Brats. I think they have one of those, let's face it, you're fat kind of numbers of Johnsonville Brats.
Just give up, the Just Give Up box.
Just give up, right. Yeah. So I'm going to do something where I just film me like chucking a bunch of them into the air or something, like just a lot of sausages. And and I'll be really honest with you, I'm going to have plastic under here so I can eat them later. Like it's not going to be good. They're not going to waste.
We're going to promote this, that we're going to be tossing sausages on
the
live show.
Or it could be that I'll drop them, like sausage.
Oh, like confetti. Like, yeah.
You win a prize. A bunch of sausages. Either way, like they know they're going to have a good one. And I'll tell you, I had an experience like that in the whale days. For reasons I don't understand, fellows paper shredders wanted to send me a paper shredder and a check. And so I was like, I'll take it. And
don't shred the check, for God's sake.
Well, so what I did was I made a video, and I wasn't super video popular at that time at all. I wasn't using any video, but I took the fellows shredder and I put it on my exercise ball as a kind of way to get it on the screen. So it's bouncing as I'm using it. And I said, I'm not really sure how to use it because this is the manual. And I killed the manual. I said, but it seems like it works. And that was it. And that was my video. They didn't work with me on other projects, but I think they thought it was novel.
Weird. I don't know. Can't imagine.
So,
do you ever see how much is my favorite game is to see how many pages you can squish into the shredder at once?
Well, I only had the shredder for a short amount of time because I actually don't have a lot of paper. So all I really did was shred some of my friends' books.
I'm a lawyer, so lots of paper, but and you can't really. So this used to drive me insane. The law office I worked at had an intern that was a high school student, and they would photocopy just every single thing from like a real estate closing, including people's licenses and stuff. And I was like, this is bad. So I would be shredding like crazy because they just wouldn't listen. So anyway, I would convince them to get a shredder, but then I was like, I know the manual says only 10 pages at a time. Right. But I don't want to be here like all day. So I'd be like, 12, 15. Like, how high can you go? Because there's definitely like an idiot buffer.
Yeah.
I feel like, is this more than 10? It is not 20. I learned that lesson. It is more than 10.
But now you have to go to your show because now your show's in 2 minutes.
I have to go do my show. Well, now the tech check for my show is in 2 minutes. And as you can see, I'm all set up, so I think it'll be okay.
Is that a 10 out of 10 room rate or background, would you say?
Well, yes, it is. Would you like to see the whole thing? Because we can go
widescreen.
Let's
do it. Get that bigger size here. Ready?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that all of a sudden I saw a lot of people with musical instruments on their walls after you scored a 10.
That was funny. That was funny.
Threw a ukulele up for nothing.
A ukulele. I love it. He had one. And it's not just any ukulele. It's like a really nice ukulele.
And more than that, he played Smoke on the Water on it. I saw it.
To prove that he can play it.
To sort of show off that he actually could play a uke.
We'll have to do that one day because I can like very slowly play.
Yes, you can. We're going to jam. We'll jam on the show. But we'll just have to figure out the ear thing. We'll have to do
I can't hear myself play and I can't hear it's like I need to hear them both. So
turns out.
Everyone's like, don't worry, because we won't be here for that one.
By the way, that's one of the weirdest things I could tell you from ever being on stage at a rock concert. Like I was pretty much standing on the stage for part of Slash with Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators. And then another one of the things that I found was kind of interesting was that it's quiet on the stage more than you'd ever imagine. Out in the audience, it sounds like massive sound and you have your fingers in your ears and all that crap. On stage, sometimes you can't hear stuff. And I was just like, oh my gosh.
We have a lot of country musicians here in Nashville, obviously, and Jimmy Charles did a performance around, I think it was in December, and he couldn't hear. He couldn't hear himself, so he didn't know if it was sounding right to the audience, or anything. Like he just didn't know. So he did the whole thing, and then he came off, and he was like, "Oh man, did that even did you even hear it? Like, how does that even sound?" And it's a thing. It's hard sometimes. Much less important, obviously, for me than for Jimmy Charles. But yeah.
Well, Jimmy Charles being who he is.
Can't jam if you can't hear.
That is true. That is true. All right.
This has been fun. So Carol Allaleaf, who's been here the whole time, was like, "Are we not also going to have you in the comments?" And I was like, "Carol, I'm like toggling between windows."
You're going to do all the things. You are that episode of the Brady Bunch when Peter had 2 dates at the same time.
He never had another date. Did you notice that?
I noticed. He was really bad at it, it turns out.
Just the one time. He blew it. Peter blew it.
We got to think about the segments a little more, but we'll get to it. Next week, there may or may not be sort of a truncated schedule, just FYI, but we'll figure that out too, because I'm going to do some retooling. So I just want you to know that there may be slightly fewer episodes next week.
In the lab.
Don't fit. I'm in the lab with the pen and the pad trying to get my damn label off. All right. Got to go. Carrie, thanks for being part of it. Everybody, thank you for being here. As always, it means the world to me. Joseph, Jaffe, wow, what a guy.
And a thoughtful gentleman.
JaffeJuice on Twitter, linkedin.com/JaffeJuice. It's JaffeJuice everywhere. CoronaTV. Check out his show sometime. It's way more fun. We'll catch you later. Carrie, thanks. You guys know what I'm doing. Hitting the button. It didn't work.